Today, we turn our attention to one of Nigeria's most debated developments in Nigeria's oil and gas sector, the growing influence of the Dangote Refinery in the downstream market. With a massive capacity of 650,000 barrels per day, the refinery is undeniably a game changer, but its growing footprint is stirring concerns amongst key industry stakeholders, including independent depot owners, retailers, and petroleum marketers about competition, logistics pricing, and the long-term health of Nigeria's downstream ecosystem. The Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria, PETROAN, which represents thousands of petrol station owners, has been a strong advocate for equitable market access and warned that forward integration by dominant players like Dangote, if unchecked, could lead to monopolistic dynamics, job losses, and small businesses being squeezed out. And joining us live today from Port Harcourt is none other than the president of PETROAN, Dr. Gillis-Harry, who will be speaking with me about these and other issues. Good morning, Dr. Gillis-Harry. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for having me on your show, and good morning, Nigeria.
Indeed, good morning, Nigeria. Let's start with the big picture. What is PETROAN's general stance on the emergence of the Dangote Refinery? A welcome development for your members. Let's hear your take on that.
Dangote Refinery is very welcome development for members of PETROAN across Nigeria. And I believe it's a very welcome development for the whole of Nigeria and Africa, because the Dangote Refinery gives us a 5-star chip on our shoulders, and we are proud of it anywhere, anytime, and wish and will do the best we can to ensure that Dangote's refinery is successful, is sustainable, and serves Africa and the world, especially Nigeria, for a very, very long time. So, having said that, our point is very simple. When Dangote's debut was made, PETROAN was one of the forefront organizations highly membered by retail outlet owners across the state, across the country, that welcomed and actually was there at the commissioning by the then-led by President Buhari's government. So we applaud it and we are very happy with it.
Okay.
But our concern is from the one, the business model seems not to accommodate, small players like us. We are small players, but in our numbers, we become a very major player in the industry. And all that we are asking is let the business model that is being presented by Dangote's management include us. One of it is that I have members who have just about one station with 3 pumps, 6 pumps, or 2 stations. And I have members who also have up to 50 pumps. There are 50 stations, some of them with about 30 pumps and so on. So we're a major force. We're a major stakeholder, very critical stakeholder. And we thought that Dangote Refinery should have us on the table. We eventually had a meeting. The meeting did not actually conclude because the terms of business were that we have to commit to at least 2 million liters. And most of my members can only pay for 45,000 liters. But imagine where at least 2,000 members are able to have access to product from Dangote Refinery, and we are taking 45,000 liters at least every 2 days. You can see how well that would play.
Sure.
Now, we are still discussing about that when suddenly we came to the situation where Dangote has decided now to bring product directly to our retail outlets. On the surface of it, it looks like, oh, this is a very good one because it will reduce our costs, it will reduce, but that is even the problem, because then we're going to concentrate so much power and influence on just
Okay,
one
sir.
organization.
Thank you, sir. So sorry to
And
interrupt
that's why
you.
we started crying out.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying and establishing that you're not necessarily against the refinery, but the business model. And just for the benefit of our viewers, when you say the business model, I know you've expressed
Yes.
some concerns around forward integration. Some people have described it as forward integration in disguise. Is it around the fact that the Dangote Group is competing in the distribution of products as opposed to the actual retailing of products? Can you clarify that for our viewers?
Well, already prior to this time, there was the partnership between Dangote Refinery and MRS.
Right.
And PETROAN supported that MRS transaction very well because we thought that was a good one. Even my own stations registered both with Dangote and with MRS. And at the end of the day, we found out that what they wanted to do was to get our database. And that was a big concern to members across the country. Now, while we are yet to wrap our heads around that, then the announcement of refining, storing, loading at the gantry, and then delivering products directly by Dangote trucks to our retail outlets. Basically, what that means is that all of the businesses in between have been wiped out. And you can imagine the number of depots that we have in this country, the number of petroleum tankers that have been doing a good job since we don't have our pipelines working,
yeah.
we don't have our rail lines carrying liquid products so very efficiently. It's the tankers that have been doing that. All that will also be at jeopardy. So our concern was that when this number of retail outlets are now going to be taking product directly from Dangote, obviously, it is not going to be one truck. It's not going to be one tank. It's not going to be one 45,000 liter tanker that will be paid for by my members. They will still be looking for the business model of paying for 2 million liters or 1 million liters, which is a lot of money. And members do not have access to that kind of funds individually. So we thought that what Dangote should have done is discuss with us as stakeholders and work with us to deepen the refinery's capacities. So that way Dangote can just focus on refining and not be involved in distribution, and not be involved in storage.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
And not be involved in retailing. Because, just 1 second. So at the end of the day, you discover that MRS and Dangote are actually one company, I mean, two companies that are having common economic management team. So that becomes a concern to us, that will be concentrating so much in so few hands. And that's not good for Nigerians.
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Gillis-Harry, thank you for that. Your comment about the Common Economic Management Team, although that needs to be further reviewed, but I wanted to ask you about whether there is anything in law or regulation that prevents a refiner of this size from participating in the distribution of products that they refine. If so, can you help us better understand what the regulation says, how it applies? Were there processes that should have been followed that were not followed? We'd like to understand what this means from a legal and regulatory perspective.
Okay, right now there is only one extant law that is controlling the midstream and the downstream and even the upstream. Refining is a midstream activity. Distribution, sales, retailing, like us, that's the last mile in the value chain. We are downstream. The refinery is in the midstream refining. It's now going to cross over into our downstream activities by distributing petroleum products directly to our retail outlets. There's a law. I can refer quickly to the PIA section 212, which requires management and accounting separation for licensed activities. The PIA section 212, subsection 2, also mandates that transactions with affiliates be at arm's length. We also have the Federal Competitive Commission section 72, 2C, that bans exclusionary acts that harm competition. So these simply tells us that Dangote Refinery, as it is, should just stay within its ambit. And then the rest of the industry should do the remaining. And so we have quite a lot of infrastructure that's already in place before the advent of Dangote Refinery. Has the system been efficient? We cannot say that it's efficient, and even till now it's not efficient. But we are happy that the advent of Dangote is a game changer. But game changer as to what? Is it game changer to put us in penury, to change the economic inputs and contributions by all of us, from the big to the medium to the small? That is just all that we're asking, because otherwise I don't see what any one of us is. Nobody, in my opinion, and from what I know and what I've heard, there is no Nigerian in the business as stakeholders that is in any way against Dangote Refinery. We want Dangote Refinery to be successful. We want Dangote Refinery to be very, very successful, but be successful with all of us together, because we contribute 1 cent, or 1 kobo or the other, to the growth of the economy. Not just only through our taxes, but also the employments we generate, the families that we feed, the children that we educate, the medicines that we provide. So there are quite a lot of things that are being done in this sector.
Okay, sir.
And the margins are not even so high. I can tell you that a young lady or woman or man that is selling food will do much more profitably, better than us as retail outlets that have been investing about 50 million naira per truck. And then now we are going to be completely stripped by the activities of one company that will refine, that will store, that will distribute, and ultimately will take over our retail outlets.
Okay, thank you for clarifying your stance. So just to be sure that we understand your stance. So your stance is essentially calling for the Dangote Refinery to focus on midstream activities. Is that notwithstanding the fact that if Mr. Dangote chose to apply for a downstream license for distribution and retailing, you would be in agreement with that? That was the first question I had, just so you could clarify. The second one was that stakeholders like PETROAN...
Well, right now, I don't think that that is not what is doing.
Okay.
I think that that is exactly what is being done. Even though everything is heaped on onto Dangote Refinery, because that's the advertisement, that is what is in the news, and every single thing that's been done is put onto Dangote Refinery. Okay. And there is no report directly from Aliko Dangote himself or any of his top aides or top officers that have controverted to the fact that it's Dangote Refinery that's in charge.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And then, of course, when we look at the MRS factor, we can also see the family ties. So how arm's length is that will be the question.
Sure. Okay,
but what we're offering, look, let me make it clear to Nigerians. What we're offering, just 1 second, madam. What we're offering is, look, we already have a system in the business. Dangote's advent has come in as a positive game changer. It means we are not going to be crying about petroleum tankers having weather problems, or there is situations of flood on our roads and products cannot move from one state to the other. But while this refinery has now come to give us the positive game changer we need, we all need to do what is needed to make sure that the economy continues to include all. And this is the only way the Nigerian people can have the confidence of having energy security, because you do not want to concentrate all of these powers into just one hand. And that is what we are seeing happening, because we have had several meetings even with the Dangote team in attendance, and we are seeing a very, negative result by not agreeing to the terms of what is agreed. We have agreed to work together, and we should agree to work together. And in my opinion, and what I will advise even the Dangote, because I don't know Alhaji Aliko Dangote as somebody that is mean. I know him as a philanthropist. I know him as somebody who should have the heart to grow the economy for the best. We are happy to have him in our midst as the richest African, and we want to continue to maintain that record with him. But let all of us be in the play. None of us should be left behind. That is just a question. So what is needed is just a roundtable discussion with the Dangote management, with all the stakeholders, and then the government, that's the regulatory authority, and even the government itself should be interested in how this is resolved, because at the end of the day, it is energy, and energy is a security issue. So you cannot concentrate this power just in the hands of one company. That's all that we're saying.
So my question, thank you. My question was around access to market information, which Nigerians often complain around. How much is being lifted? How much is being imported? Are we still producing more and consuming locally than we're importing? Because I think that is part of the issue. What can regulators do, especially NMDPRA, do to provide this information and make it publicly available?
Well, I think that the NMDPRA is doing well. Don't forget, NMDPRA is also a new organization that's just new on the block, and they are doing the best they can. Yes, it goes without saying that the industry has not been transparent enough as it should be, and I don't think anybody that is really patriotic about Nigeria's values will deny that. And we in PETROAN, as always, shouted out when we hear figures bandied. That led us to develop what was called the Petroleum Product Passport, which we had hoped that will help the monitoring of products lifted and consumed. We are still on it. We hope that someday the government will call for that to be integrated into the national distribution apparatchik efficiently. We have always called on the NMDPRA to areas where we think that attention is being needed, and they have responded so fast. That's why we are happy with the engineer, Farouk Ahmed led, NMDPRA management. We still call on them to do more, because right now, where the country is, especially with the advent of Dangote Refinery, we should stop, presenting information that are just merely speculative. We should have empirical evidence. And that's what I know that NMDPRA is doing today.
Thank you, sir.
Because right now, you cannot say this is the number of retail outlets in the country just by guessing. NMDPRA will tell you these are the numbers of licensed refineries, retail outlets that have been effectively licensed or renewed. When you talk about tankers that have loaded, NMDPRA has figures of actual tankers that are loading product from every depot. So there's quite a lot of improvement. And with the advent of Dangote's refinery, we believe that with all the stakeholders working with Dangote Refinery and the state and the authorities, like NMDPRA, like the Federal Competition, do their bit, Nigerians will be the
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. And for ending on a conciliatory note, ultimately, what is in the best interest of Nigerians should ultimately prevail. Speaking to Dr. Billy Gillis-Harry, president of PETROAN, on Nigeria's downstream and midstream sector challenges and outlook. Well, that's all we have time for on Business Week. I'm Rolake Akinkugbe-Filani. Let's continue the conversation on X. Do have a lovely rest of the weekend. See you soon.